Okay, we're getting started. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, so today we're talking on the same topic, really, that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. It's just different aspects of it. I called this one Divine Union Part 2, and this is really parts that I wanted to talk about in the previous 2 ones, but there was too much material to cover. Hi, Ravina. Thank you for joining. I put it at 5 to make it a little earlier. Let me know in the comments if you would like it even earlier, like maybe in the morning, around noon. Let me know if evening is the best time for you, or if there's a better option. Okay, so preparing for divine union. The volume is really low. Okay. Is the volume better now? So we started this discussion 2 weeks ago on spiritual awakening, and this has been going on for quite some time, but it's really accelerating right now. And for me personally, I can start to see that, wow, I can really feel the changes where I can see myself more as a spiritual being and feel less identified with the physical world around me, less identified with this body that I'm in, and starting to see myself as more than just what meets the eye. And while I knew this before, it is really starting to sink in a more real way. I brought up discussion on this spiritual awakening. I brought up how this is really us coming into divine union with our higher selves, being able to connect to source energy, connect to God. There's lots of different terms that you can use. For me personally, I connect to whatever makes the most sense to describe what I'm feeling. Because we can have all these different beliefs and ideas, but what really matters is what we're experiencing and how we can incorporate that into our belief systems and what we know to be true, and sometimes we have to change some of that. Okay, so maybe the audio will be better now. Hopefully that helps with the audio. We've got the process of spiritual awakening, which can be activated through another person or through circumstances in our lives, or can just be a process that we're going through and we don't always realize this is what's happening. So this is really what I talked about in the first one, and the second one last week I talked about divine union, how we're shifting our level of consciousness, shifting our awareness, stepping into our power. And the way I've seen it, because I have a Christian background, a symbolism for your relationship with the divine, your relationship with God, can be symbolized as a marriage. It's this beautiful passion. And we can see reflections of that beauty within our relationships in the physical. But the essence of it is really that relationship with the divine, and we can connect to higher and higher levels of that. And through this process, we're also anchoring in those levels of consciousness, that awareness. And as we'll talk about today, referencing it as levels of frequency and vibration. So there's the different aspects of it. There is the physical aspect, where you might have a relationship with someone in the physical, and then there is the spiritual aspect. There is the level of the soul, the energetic body, the light body. There's these different aspects to us, and one of the things that we have really been conditioned to within our society is that obsession with the relationships in the physical world, which really pale in comparison to the depth of connection that we can feel within ourselves. And once we develop that level of connection, that we can feel with others as well. But really, it starts within ourselves. So we talked about divine union. So in the purest sense, divine union is that union with source energy, that union with revealing who we truly are. Coming into full awareness of who you really are, embodying light and love at higher and higher degrees, and where you can access really high levels of bliss, where you might have states, and then you kind of come back down into what you're recognize as your normal, but then you integrate that into your life. And as you are able to feel and hold more levels of light, it's going to purge you. It's going to purge your body, purge any stored emotions. So you're going to be going through that purging process. And as you're able to purge more of that and be comfortable with feeling more, because as you get more connected to yourself, connected to your experience, that increases your capacity to feel, your capacity to be in the moment. And being in the moment is being immersed within sensation rather than almost being disconnected from sensation and from your body. And it's kind of a protection mechanism to protect you from being able to feel the depth of what you can experience. You hear about people who have enlightenment experiences or who have anchored in those states, how every moment feels magical, everything feels so incredibly alive, where the mind isn't condensing what you're experiencing into ideas and abstractions. And divine union, this divine union is really about discovering unconditional love. So this is something that you can work towards discovering, but is also something that it arrives. As you go through this process, it's not something that you can necessarily force. As you find yourself moving through this process, you're going to discover how this can show up in small ways. Okay, so other aspects that we talked about are accessing love from within yourself, not needing circumstances to be perfect or working out the way you want them to. And if you are in a partnership, that partnership reflects the divine light from within yourself versus you trying to get that from someone else. And there's a glorious experience of life available now. We talked about a genuine desire for a partner versus the urge to avoid painful emotions. And this separation consciousness versus union consciousness, and we're going to talk about more of that now. We talked about growth partners versus long-term partners and how our desire for a partner can get confused with the lessons or growth that we need to learn now. And we can move through this growth very quickly. We don't need to stay in situations that are really difficult and potentially re-traumatizing and toxic. We can get out of that, learn the lesson quickly, and be done with it. Move on to the beauty in our lives that is available to us. We talked about how others help you discover divine union. I used the image here of there's a couple that are in the water, suspended. We've got someone representing the feminine polarity and also the masculine polarity. I chose this image because it's really interesting how coming into each other's field is igniting the light. And of course, in this image, we've got the light shining from what we know is the surface of the water. But if you think about it, that can represent the light igniting within the feminine. So the masculine is activating this light coming from within. So when I talked here about how others help you discover divine union, I'm talking about how someone can be activating you to have that light basically just be shining in on you full force. And it can be a very, very come out of the blue, very shocking experience. And whether you have someone activating you, or this is just happening on its own or triggered by your life experience, the mechanism that I'm going to describe today is very similar or even the same. So today, and as I mentioned last week, I'm going to talk about this transformation that takes place within you as you discover your divinity within. The ascension process and mechanisms, so I'm just going to focus on a part of it. Today I'm not going to be talking about the Kundalini awakening part of it and the bigger cosmic view. The bigger cosmic view really here is that we're going through this spiritual awakening, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at one point, but it is this process, which we can call ascension, and this affects us, it affects the people around us, it affects our environment. And I'm not referencing the video that I linked in the comment section in the live stream I did 2 weeks ago. It was the positive and negative souls. I thought that was really interesting because she was talking about how there's the positive souls who are working towards ascension, and then the negative souls that are working towards this descension. I'm not sure if that's the exact term for it, but you can go back and take a look at that video. And I thought that was helpful just to provide a sense of reference for, we see a lot of things around us that are very difficult. And if we're all working towards ascension, then why is what is happening going on? And of course it provides a counterfoil, but also there's going to be a lot of disparity in between people and also collective groups of people. Like what we see physically here in this world, like it's really only the surface layer, and there's more depth to that. Practically, you've got your little realm, your little bubble that you're working within, and focusing on yourself, that provides you with the focus that you need to do the work that you need to do. So I'm referencing the video, What is Ascension? Understanding 45D. This is the part 1 by Awaken with Pradnya. So that's the title of the video, and I would recommend going and watching that video. There are some interesting diagrams that you can look at. I didn't include any of the diagrams here that were in that video. I'm just summarizing the important points that she made. So she's talking about 3D being this physical linear dimension. So we've got the terms 3D, 4D, 5D. Practically, what matters is what we can connect to, what makes sense to us practically. So physical linear dimension. And in the video I did this week about timelines, we've got the linear timeline, which looks back into the past and then projects out and into the future. Considering what is happening now, this is what I think can happen in the future. And this is considering for myself in my own life as well as what I see around myself. Now, we can break out of that and step into a bigger awareness of what's possible, starting to see reality as a space of possibility where we can select and focus on nurturing a possibility that we want to happen over a possibility that we don't want to happen. I've been listening a lot this week to The Alchemist, and one video was particularly interesting about how our reality is controlled through our subconscious mind, how we're shown these different images and suggested these different possible future scenarios, which give us the idea that this is what's going to happen, and as that's cemented into our subconscious mind, it makes it more likely that it is going to happen. As we unconsciously accept that reality, it comes true. So here, if we're breaking out of that linear dimension, we are having more choice. We're able to choose. I see that as one potential reality, but I'm going to detach and release those outcomes and connect to a different potential reality. So ascension, we're talking about 3D, 4D, 5D, whatever that looks like, and we've got some different terms here that are going to help us connect to that. So ascension, it's a slow process where we are vibrating from a lower level of awareness up to a higher level of awareness. When I think about this, it makes sense to me in that we're made out of atoms, and an atom, it's got the proton and the neutron in the middle, and the rest is the electron, and it's mostly empty space. I think it's more than 99% empty space. So that electron is vibrating. Now, not only is it not just circling around the nucleus, there is different probability spaces, fields for where it could potentially be. So it's not even just a physical thing, it's energy. An electron is energy. And this is the really interesting thing about science, because if you think too hard about it, you start to realize that, wait, we're not solid, we're not physical in the way that we perceive ourselves to be. Even if you are agnostic and you believe strictly in the physical world, if you think about it really carefully, you know that we're all vibrating. We're made of particles that are basically energy that is vibrating. And she talks about the light energy body versus a physical form. So we've got our physical form, but we also have the light body, energy body. In this video, I think she was using these terms interchangeably, and some other people might differentiate between them. Okay, so the physical body, vibrating at a slow rate, it's denser and has lower frequency. The light body, energy body, spinning at a much higher rate, lighter and higher frequency. Of course, this is hard for us to conceptualize, having like a different, basically, body that is vibrating at a different rate, because the mind and the physical senses can't necessarily detect it. And a lot of our identity, a lot of these constructs that we are attached to and identified with have trouble really understanding this. And that's really why it's hard to get to ascension or get to enlightenment through the mind. There is this jump that happens. There is this leap. It's really, instead of a gradual development of skill, there is this leap that has to happen where you have that detachment from the mind, from almost this like solidified perception of reality being the way it is, to realizing that reality is more fluid. It's something that you can play with. So we've got this light body, and maybe you've seen videos about activating the light body. I was listening to one of those videos just a couple days ago. Just today, we've got like really intense energy because of what's happening astrologically. And I've been feeling it. Like Friday, I was exhausted. Thursday, I was really, really tired. And I was like, why am I so tired? Of course, because we're going through this process. We've got this light body accessing higher levels of consciousness. Now, once you've got the light body, which can be the light within you, or it's described here in this video as the light within you, Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us. The light within you, as this starts to grow, that starts to affect your physical body. So you've got this chain where you're getting light being channeled into you, and so that's like where someone else can start to trigger that within you, where you start to receive that light, and then that start to vibrate within you and then affect your physical body, and then that's where you start to get awakening symptoms or ascension symptoms, or whatever you want to call it, which can be very similar to other kinds of symptoms, like if you're sick, or maybe even can resemble depression or chronic fatigue syndrome, but then there's difficulty in deciding, well, what is this coming from? So there's that level of confusion there. There must be something wrong. And maybe sometimes there is something that you can work on. You can improve your health, and there might be a medical issue, but then it can be intertwined and kind of tangled up with what is happening to you. So you've got the light body filling up with light. And let's see, I'm trying to think of how, like, situations or times where I felt this. I've felt days where I've gone through like a really intense dark period, so that's that purging. And then days where I've felt this incredible, beautiful love and light. And in this activation and awakening process, it felt like anxiety, my heart like racing, not being able to focus, just like this ecstatic joy. I think it felt kind of like infatuation, kind of like being in love. Falling in love. I mean, and that's why we call it divine union, right? And when I say preparing for divine union, what I've titled this as is being aware that this is what's happening. It's super exciting, and that we can help this process by being intentional about recognizing what is aligning with this process and what is hindering us from this process. So I like to journal a lot. That's how I like to help sort out my thoughts. And we had a lot of comparisons from the live stream last week, so those can provide a guidepost. And I just have a few comparisons, a couple slides this time, that are referencing the two videos that I looked at. So it's felt like anxiety, it's felt like this really intense energy, and I've had enough of it before that I've recognized, like, okay, I know what's going on. I had some awareness of what's going on, right? I didn't have these specific descriptions to describe this process, but I had an awareness, like, this is something spiritual that's happening. It's going to get better. It's going to level out and even out eventually. So this high, like, it's really like a high. It can be so intense that it's undesirable or you don't want it. And then later on, you can look back and say, you know what, I miss that. I want that again. But of course, we're integrating that within ourselves. And as we continue to do the work, we're going to be able to access more of those states. And of course, as we move through this process, what felt really intense before, that same level, it's going to feel kind of lukewarm now because we are getting used to it. So we've got the light body activated, then we've got that's activating the physical body, and as the physical body starts to change, that's where it gets anchored in. So the light body accesses the higher levels of consciousness, but the physical body anchors in those levels of consciousness. And there's going to be changes in your body that you can't see. There's going to be cellular changes. There is different videos on, how the body changes through different levels of awakening. There's really, really interesting information that's available to us. I don't know how much of it's super accurate, and it's difficult to know until you're actually in it and experiencing it. But there is information available. Okay, so we've got a comparison here with 3D consciousness. We've got the whole range of emotions, the roller coaster of emotions, happiness, anger, jealousy, ego, expectation, trauma, judgment. We know with happiness, a lot of the times it is trying to chase it. So it's not even an embodiment of a good state or feeling. A lot of the times it's trying to chase happiness or trying to avoid these different feelings. And when we actually feel the happiness, we can't really fully experience it. We're still escaping it. So a lot of this state is really escaping these emotions instead of really deeply feeling them, because as you access higher levels of consciousness, you're going to be able to still feel all those emotions, but feel them more deeply and intensely because you're not identified with them, and you're also rooted in this higher consciousness, which can experience all of reality in more depth without feeling as if you're almost threatened by it. Like, if I feel these different emotions that I perceive as negative, that's going to potentially hurt me, so I'm going to avoid feeling all of it. Otherwise, stepping into your eternal nature, into who you really are, you're no longer threatened by this, because if you're eternal, these emotions aren't going to hurt you. We're very familiar with this awareness where there's a desire to be better than others. I experienced that. Wanting to be popular, wanting to be liked, it's a big one. Being worried about whether other people like us or not. Being driven by the ego. And there's this whole aspect to ego that is really sneaky, and it can focus on even being a victim, really not just wanting to be popular, not just wanting to make yourself look like the best person in the room, but also it can play the victim as long as it's perpetuating itself. There's this judging, analyzing, adherence to belief systems. And in terms of duality, there is when we use the definition of duality in this judgment of good and bad and right and wrong. Of course, it's always good to have discernment. I've had all types of body changes the last year since going through awakening. Yeah, like I've heard that it can affect you in a really big way. I blame it on clinical depression, but like this exhaustion. I will fall, like when I'm listening to a video, I will fall asleep, and I've heard Jeffrey Allen say that is unconsciousness leaving the body. Like for me, I get really irritable, really moody. I've had a lot of pain in my body, in the neck and back. So I understand that as being stored emotion, and as that's worked through, it's getting better. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and share more of the changes that you experience, Paul, go ahead in the chat and share, and anyone else who wants to share too. I was watching a video this week by The Alchemist, and they're talking about Christ consciousness and how Christ consciousness is, a lot of it has to do with embodying this discernment and this wisdom. So you do need discernment and you do need wisdom, and it's contrasted to this egotistical, selfish nature where the wisdom is really channeled through the heart and it's purified through the heart. And I can understand that as where we've got the light body, which is purifying you from within. I see this as different terms, different ways to express what is happening, and maybe they are referring to slightly different things. There can be some subtlety in there, but I thought that was really interesting, where there you do need discernment, and it's very different from the function of judgment. Judgment, it can be used just as a tool of the ego to separate us from others. I would always focus on whether others thought of me, and now I'm learning to detach. That's a really hard one. Yeah, it's really good to learn how to detach, but definitely a process to get there. Yeah, so in this video, by Awaken with Pradnya, she mentions how with the 3D consciousness, that consciousness is absorbed and converted into certain experiences, thought forms, and belief systems, which I thought was really interesting. There's a video of Bob Proctor where he's saying that pain in the body, especially joint pain, is just frozen hate or emotions. Yeah, I can see that. Well, I've had so much anger, and I can feel it even coming up in the past week. Like last Sunday, I was mountain biking and talking, imagining scenarios in my head and talking to people in my head and having these conversations where I was processing that anger and resentment and bitterness that hasn't come up for me for a while, was very strong in my life, probably 3 or 4 years ago. But it came up again, and it's almost as if I was biking for 4 hours, and through that process it was purging and being released, and after a day then I felt better. Looking forward to part 1. Yeah, go back and listen to part 1. So this part where she's describing this, I found really interesting. The way that she described it, where this 3D consciousness is absorbed and converted into certain experiences, thought forms, and belief systems. So it's like there's this field that we can access. This is how I imagine it. There's this field that we can access and that we're tuning into. And there is this energetic field which gets crystallized into our experiences and thought forms. So when I say it's really difficult to just through the conscious mind try to push through this experience, it's really difficult to do. There is that jump, there is that leap that has to happen on an energetic level. That's not necessarily something that the mind can do on its own, and the mind can be surprised, like, oh, we're here now. Or your conscious awareness can be surprised, oh, you're here now. And sometimes when I have these repetitive thoughts come up, I start to start to feel into that energy behind the thoughts and stop taking the thoughts so seriously, because I realized, you know what, maybe it's not just the thoughts themselves. There's more depth to them. There's more substance in the energy behind the thoughts than the thoughts themselves. And that's why we don't need to take all of our thoughts too seriously. Like, that's the part of the process of detaching. That eclipse set people's emotions on fire for a good 3 to 4 days, both before and after. Last week was rough. Yeah. It seems like that's happening a lot lately. But that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, we can recognize that, yeah, this process is challenging and it's difficult. And I was just being thankful that I can have the ability to take time to rest. And also release myself from expectation of getting a whole bunch done. Your body anchors the level of consciousness you're in and reflects it into the energetic field around you. I'm not sure how to say this. Ho'oponopono prayer helps a lot with releasing emotions and forgiving people. Yeah, I've heard of this. And that can be the really powerful, strong aspect of prayer when it takes us into this state of humility and acceptance, and where we're surrendering, because we're really detaching from the ego in that moment. I can relate to the energy shifts of the eclipse and full moon. Yeah, it's so interesting. There's a part of my mind that wants everything to happen and show up physically. Like, oh, everything's changed now, and everything I wanted before is showing up now. And there's another part of me that recognizes there's something better that's happening now than what egoically I want to show up in my life. The part of me, or the pattern in me, that thinks that, oh, if I have all this stuff, or I have externally what I think I want, then that's going to solve everything. But really, it's not about solving problems. We're on this journey. We're on this beautiful awakening process, and we're discovering what's happening. And yeah, as we grow in consciousness, there's going to be a greater appreciation of what's happening around us and within us. I've heard of that prayer. I'm hearing a lot about it. Yeah. So this light that you're holding inside of you, that's residing in the form of your energetic body, also referred to here as the original self or your soul. That light from the light body is activating the light inside of you, which is reflected into your energetic field, which she also described as your aura. And everyone has their own aura and energetic frequency, like a bubble. And of course, I know that different people get really descriptive and really particular about like how we're composed in our different bodies and the different layers that we have. Yeah, so we've mentioned some of the symptoms that you can have. They can be nausea, headaches, fatigue, feeling sad, angry, frustrated for no reason. And it's where the physical body is trying to catch up with that light frequency. And there's this disparity between the light inside you and the frequency of your physical body. And as you're accessing those higher states, you're anchoring in those higher frequencies in your physical body. So there can be this, the physical body is catching up to the light body. It works like magic, the Ho'oponopono prayer. Forgiveness is everything, starting with a clean slate. Yeah, there's a lot to be said that we can still access that sovereign power within us and release that baggage. It's almost like that act of forgiveness can release the memories which kind of keep you stuck in a loop. Releasing that, it's also like hardening or softening the heart, where it's breaking off the hardened parts of the heart, and as you're in tune with your heart, you're able to better protect yourself because you're more aware of what is happening around you. The obstacles are the way. Forward motion in authentic heart-based action, cultivating inner states, not seeing outer rewards. Be you too full, beautiful, inspired by love and action. Yeah, thank you, Lumina Mind. Yeah, that's described so well. So this is a slow process. There's subtle changes. You're processing denser consciousness, and that's why we are experiencing like these different kind of symptoms. And you're going to see changes over longer periods of time. And one of the measures of your progress can be how much time am I spending in judging myself or others, and looking at things in terms of right and wrong. There can be different aspects and levels of truth. Like, this is where discernment comes in, but we can start to see the judgments of what's right and wrong, where the ego is using it as a tool to justify closing off your heart, to justify not opening yourself, being authentic and vulnerable, to close yourself off from the connection that is available to you, to close yourself off from any niggling or any part of you that wants to step into being in that heart-centered space where the mind can say, no, I want to stay in this judgment because that's right and that's true. Well, that's a limited version of what's right and what's true. Like, there's higher levels of that. So connecting to 4D, being, and she described this in the video as being in the present moment, being detached from the environment, connecting to source frequency. And you can be in the state where you're accessing the higher frequencies but still being anchored in the 3D consciousness in the physical body. And this is a process that we're moving through. And we have another comparison of 3D and higher. So 3D is the dimension of ego, isolation, fear, poverty, struggle, depression, anger. Interesting that you feel these things as they're purging, and it's not an indicator that, oh no, that means I'm stuck in the 3D consciousness. No, that actually means that you're purging it and you're releasing it. You can have like this it can be really, really intense as you purge it. There's competition, insecurity, suspicion, a sense of not being loved, imposter syndrome. I felt that in the 2 weeks ago in the awakening live stream. I felt imposter syndrome after it. I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I messed it up. I didn't do very good. So I felt this really intense imposter syndrome afterwards. Loneliness. I'm not abundant. That's the interesting thing, is that as we start to take action towards being all that we can be, it can trigger this within us. It can trigger this stuff to come up and be released. And it's uncomfortable. It's not fun. There can be a judgment that comes up. Well, maybe I am not good enough. The sense of not being loved. And this is really interesting, because yes, it can be true objectively, like you feel this person doesn't love you. But there's another layer to it, where I imagine in my mind this person not loving me, and where it's a construct within you. And that's related to you not loving yourself, because you are creating an image of this person in your mind that you're imagining is not loving you. I connect to this and resonate this as this internal critic, as me imagining scenarios where I imagine people disliking me. And I think, oh wow, like there's such an addiction to doing that. And it's toxic. We can only love others at the depth that we love and accept ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I'm trying to work on, is imagining that others love me. And when I'm doing that, I know that, this imagination, it's really me loving myself, because I'm not interacting with another person. I'm interacting within my own mind. Being not good enough or not loved is something I've been healing for the longest time now. Yeah, you're not alone in that. This idea of I'm not abundant. It's so hard. I mean, you look at the world around you and you think, yeah, I'm not. But that's why we're connecting into the light within us that's being activated. And we're seeing that possible reality and bringing that into existence. Okay, so here's the contrast with 5D. And she describes it as the dimension of spirit. In this video, these are all references from this specific video. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention, sorry. This is a different video. This one was the video by Awaken with Pradnya, and then here is the video Purging into the Fifth Dimension, Release Your Fears by Sonia Shakat. This was a video from a while ago. She's got new videos since then, which are really good as well. So in the previous video, she didn't really distinguish between 4D and 5D. This one, she mentioned 3D and 5D. So there's this flexibility in our terms that we're using here. But you get the idea, and you get the gist of it. Being not good enough or not loved is something I've been healing for the longest time now. Yeah. I think I already read that one. I thought it was new. Okay. I mean, we're really stepping into unconditionally loving and accepting ourselves. And as we're letting that go, we're basically letting the light within us just like shine. And we can always improve ourselves, but we're like having ourselves being reflections of the light to others. The key is self-love. Yeah, it's so huge. Okay, this fifth dimension, the dimension of spirit. Feeling at peace, connected to your authentic self. No struggle. Reclaiming your superpower of manifestation. And I've been talking about that in my videos, and I'm going to be talking about that more. And I haven't been very specific and nuanced. I've more been speaking from my own experiences and what I'm feeling through, but I'm probably going to keep talking about that. No struggle. I know, hard to imagine, right? Simple and peaceful, this love and connection. So if we're not seeing that in the world around us, we're connecting to that within ourselves. Okay, this is my last slide. And it's just reviewing what we talked about today. So I went over it quite simply. This transformation, this discovering the divinity within, this basic mechanism, and you can go ahead and watch the video that I'm referencing here. And again, like this image of being in the water, being suspended, where you have motion, and you have the ability to have some control here, but you really are suspended in motion here. There is this greater consciousness that's holding you and directing you. Yeah, there's so much beauty that we can find here, and that's really what I was excited about. I was excited about talking about this process, talking about this incredible light. Being really intentional about it. This higher level awareness, it's less focused on planning, on what's going to happen, really focused on here and now, on the experience, trusting that you are going to be able to do what you need to do at the right time. I still get into periods where I criticize myself and say like, oh, you messed up, and have trouble releasing and letting that go, allowing the mistakes. Finding flow, the way of effortless ease. You can't force a rose to blossom. Yes. I'm a thinking center within the infinite mind. Wow, so poetic. We are individualized and connected by the chains of analogy. I think the last sentence there might have been a little too complicated for me. But yeah, I get that sense of individual nature that is so important that we're developing. Like we're not just running an experiment here. We're nurturing and developing our souls through our experience. Our choices and decisions matter. Of course, as you raise in consciousness, like that level of choice, it seems less like choice if you don't have the awareness to make better choices. But as you gain more awareness, there can be like that sense of less control, but you're more able to flow with reality in an effortless way. So it, maybe it seems like you have more control. Yeah, that's super beautiful, Luminum Mind. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, thank you for everyone who's been sharing. And thank you to everyone who has joined us in the live stream. Yeah, I'm just excited to... You can go ahead and share any thoughts or anything you'd like to share. I'm going to end the live stream soon. But yeah, this is just enjoyable to reiterate and remind yourselves of really what's happening here and be re-inspired about the process, because it can be challenging and very difficult. Thank you. First time here. I can tell I'm really going to enjoy your channel. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Yeah. There is this sense of I don't know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. And we're going to see what comes through. Definitely manifestation. Like, I'm really excited and focused about that. But, there's the exciting part, and then there is also the challenging part, right? The days that it's just, there's stuff coming up. Thank you for the wonderful videos. Oh, thank you so much. Loved all the videos you've been sharing this whole week. Awesome. I'm so glad. I do feel this sense of, I feel like I'm not fully explaining everything, like fully well, but I'm glad that you're able to connect to it and make sense of and understand what I'm saying. Like, connect to the energy of it, even though I'm not explaining things perfectly. Yeah, today was an interesting day. There was a paddle boarding group event on the lake. And it was for people to come and dress up as witches. So there was probably 200 people dressed up as witches paddleboarding around the lake. And it was so cool to see, because as you paddleboard, the capes kind of drift in the wind and you get the silhouettes, the black silhouettes. And I showed up as an egg with a witch's hat on the top. My sister came as a chicken in a yellow kayak. And of course I couldn't see myself, but when I saw her, I laughed so hard. It was so funny. She tried putting the witch's hat on, but then the rooster part, or like the top part, red part on the top, was too big, and the witch's hat didn't really fit on properly. But I pinned my witch's hat onto the top of my costume. It's like the top of the cracked egg. And I went by some witches, and they said, "Oh, there goes breakfast," and they like so paddled a bit faster. Step into that confidence. You got this. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being understanding and supportive. Awesome. Yeah, so we will see you on the next live stream, in the next videos, having a little bit more energy to be able to respond to comments now, so hopefully I will be more on that and be able to respond to them sooner than I have been. Wow, sounds fun. It was fun. Yeah, I really wanted to go out and do some kind of event like that, and it's cool. I did get some pictures. Like, you're always nervous about dropping your phone in the water. I lost my sunglasses, watched them sink down into the water, but my phone's okay, so everything's good. The egg. Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. Have an amazing weekend.